program that right now is in its 6th year, and it's been kind of growing each year. It's a cooperative project among a number of us in Extension. Kind of started with the Northwest Regional Sustainable Development Partnership, and work with a bunch of different people that put these together and host them and bring them to all of you. The idea is that we want to be supporting our local foods producers in Minnesota and beyond, of course, since we have a wider contingent of attendees here. So support you in, whether it's a business that you have, or you're thinking about building a business, or you want to grow for your own consumption, whatever it is within that we're looking to support. I'm excited to have Betty Burning. She's a University of Minnesota Extension educator in the area of ag business management. Been with Extension for a number of years. Her work focuses on labor management, women in ag. They just held a really great conference a few weeks ago for women in ag, financial management, farm estate, and transition. And you can find that session details and some resources down here on the Local Foods website page.
Good evening. Thanks for the introduction, Jake. So I'm here. I always get, so I'm on the Ag Business Management team, like Jake shared, and I always get the really fun, sexy topics like, employee management and how can I better manage my finances. So, well, I try to make it as much fun as possible. I'll try to do some things in the chat, but feel free to type in questions and hopefully I can help you out a little bit. So really a little bit about me too, really quick. I grew up on a dairy farm in central Minnesota. That's a picture of the home farm, and those are some of the calves in our calf facility. My brother still dairy farms. He has about 80 cows that he milks, and it's kind of fun to have that tie back to the farm. I did my undergrad work at University of Minnesota in ag business management, and then some of the places I've worked over the years are AgStar Financial Services, that was in Wisconsin, and I remained a loyal Vikings fan. I survived that very severe trial in my life. And then I went back to school. I went to Penn State after a couple years at AgStar and got a master's in ag economics. And then I joke, like any good Midwesterner, I returned home. After that, I had lived in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. I had seen the world. So then I worked at General Mills as a buyer, a market analyst, a few different roles there. I bought dairy for most of the time that I was there. We had the Yoplait yogurt brand, Tino's Party Pizza, and we had a big baking division that bought dried dairy ingredients. So that was a really interesting experience. But then a couple years ago, I made my way into Extension, and I really enjoy it. I have 2 little boys at home, and I get a break tonight. Yay! So we got little George with a big personality, and then Joe, he's my budding horticulturalist. He's my more thoughtful, serious child, I always joke. So that's a little bit about myself. What we'll be talking about tonight, though, about lending. So like I shared, I used to work in lending and can give you an idea of what is it that your lenders need when you go in to make your loan request. What are they looking at? What is their criteria? And then I'm going to let Jake talk a little bit about what are other ways that you can access capital if maybe you're not ready to get a loan yet. There's some different ways to do that. And then we'll talk about communicating with your lender, what a business plan looks like. A lot of lenders like to see that. And then finally, we'll talk about just what are some financial benchmarks for small farms. So I like to pause at this point and always ask, is this what you thought you were going to learn about tonight? Was there something else you maybe wanted to learn about instead? If there is, put that in the chat, and I'll try to talk about that too, provided it's within my wheelhouse. So nothing too, I don't know anything about underwater basket weaving, sorry, but something about finances, I can try to help you out. My goal is to take some of the mystery out of going to see your lender. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so I know we have to be done by 7, so we'll keep going. All right, so you're going to go in, you're going to make a loan request. What is it that your lender is looking for? First of all, when is the right time to be asking for money? Some of you might be self-funded and it might be going fine. That's awesome. Keep doing what you're doing if it's working for you. But if you're looking to expand, you start to notice that your operation's growing and that you can't self-fund it anymore, or you've saved up some money and you have a big dream, right? Maybe you've been just selling things from the end of your driveway and you're really looking to start a CSA or something, or frequenting the farmers market, and you want to expand your operation. You've saved up some money, you have some equity. That's a good time to start to talk to your lender. A lender generally isn't going to be financing 100% of whatever you're looking to purchase. So I use the example, if you're going to buy, think about when you bought your house. You know, if your house was $100,000, you didn't take a mortgage out for $100,000. Your banker probably wanted to see like 20% down. And that's, the rules in agriculture aren't quite the same, but it's the same concept. You need to have some sort of equity or a down payment. So those are good times to ask for money. What do you want to bring in then? Your lender's going to want to know your entire financial history, right? If you remember the mortgage process, we did a refinance, and I was reminded as a consumer how cumbersome it can be sometimes, but they'll want your tax returns, a 3-year history, even if you haven't been farming, just to understand what does your income look like. And all of this, it might feel sometimes a little intrusive. I know when I was going through the mortgage refinance, it's like, why do these people need this stuff? And I used to work in lending. It's for, as funny as it sounds, it's for your protection, to make sure that what you're saying your income is, it is that, and that if they make you the loan, you'll be able to make the payments. So it's done with your best interest in mind. And then if you do have financial statements, if you've been operating the business for a while, bring those in. So that's your balance sheet, which is going to have your assets and your liabilities on it, a cash flow statement. So that's kind of like a budget, or looking back and seeing where all your money went, where did it get spent. And then your income statement, which a lot of times if you have your taxes, might sound funny, but your lender can actually convert your taxes into an income statement. A tax return is an income statement of sorts. And then a business plan. We're going to spend more time talking about this later, but if it's a new bank, or you have a brand new idea, you know, you're finally ready to start the orchard or the winery or whatever it is, you want to have a plan. And what this does is it really helps you to communicate what it is you're trying to do. It also shows you put a lot of thought into what it is you're trying to do, and that you're very serious. You have a lot of skin in the game. This isn't just something you dreamed up, you know, the night before. So what else? If you are currently farming, you'll want to bring in some verification. So your production history. It might not be as applicable here, but for corn and soybean farmers, a lot of times they have insurance. I'm not sure what you all are farming. Maybe we'll ask that question here in a second. Yeah, why don't you guys type in what kind of farms you have? I'm kind of curious. But whatever records you would have, if you're milking cows, you bring in your milk records, any income you have. So if you've been marketing your grain, if you have an agreement with a wholesaler, anything that you're doing off the farm, the types of insurance you have, and then just explaining what your expenses are. So if you've prepaid some things, if you rent land, they're going to want to see all that. Okay, I'm seeing a couple people responding. Good. So yeah, I am curious what kind of farms everybody has. We'll let people keep kind of filling it in. I also have a garden that does badly. I hope it's okay that I say that. Somebody chatted that. Mine is in clay and full of sand. Somebody decided to move their sandbox, one of my children. I'll let you guess which one. Okay, and then your business plan and what your goals are. And this really is like, farming is no different than any other business, right? Your banker's going to want to understand what are your goals. I'll stop here. If you want to chat in what type of farm you have, a couple of you have, or if you have any questions on the materials that a lender would be looking for. Okay, so then the next thing, I always feel like people just say, this whole lending thing, it seems like such a mystery to me. So what is it the lender really wants to see? It's 5 C's. So this is one of the things you learn like day one on the job when you're working at a bank, the 5 C's of credit. So you have character, which is the trustworthiness of the borrower. It's looking at what your credit score might be. I'll be honest about character. In the past, a lot of it was like, you know, he's a good guy, he's from a nice family, whatever, he volunteers in town. There is less emphasis put on that these days and more put on the quantitative side of things, so looking at the credit score and some of these other things, but it still can play a small part. I know when I was in lending, I had a young farmer that wanted a loan, and we did wind up using character as one of the reasons that we made the loan to him. So not used as common, or not as much emphasis, but still used. Capital, that's what's the business investment? What are you looking to do? Capacity, this one is really important, and this one right now in the ag economy, we are running into some issues. Can you pay back the loan? So I use the example, I would have farmers that maybe they owned a couple hundred acres, but they didn't have a lot of income. Maybe they were retired and they wanted to buy more land. Well, their income and the income they were going to generate from that land would not support the payment. So they would say to me, I own all this land, why wouldn't you want to make me the loan? I have the down payment and the equity. And I would say back, because you can't make the loan payment. The loan payment is $1,000 a month, and you make whatever, you make $500 a month in Social Security or whatever it was at the time. I don't want to have to come and take some of the land. So capacity becomes very important. You need to be able to show that your income will support the loan payment. Collateral, that's your assets pledged as security. So if you have a home mortgage or a car loan, right, your house and the lot it's on, that's going to be your security. For a home loan, and for a car, it's going to be a car. Generally, what you see is whatever you're taking the loan out for, whether it's a piece of land or a piece of equipment, that's going to be the collateral. And then the last thing, the conditions. So what's the industry like? Is this a good industry to be lending to right now? Have folks been profitable? If you've maybe had a couple tough years, how do you compare it to others? Is that kind of where the industry's at right now? Are you doing well relative to other folks? So these are the things that a lender is really going to be looking at: character, capital, conditions, capacity, and collateral. And what they do with all of that is assign you a risk rating. And every bank will do it a little differently, but obviously a lower risk rating is going to be better. It means you have less likelihood of defaulting or running into problems. And then we have some lending parameters here. There's, you might be thinking, oh goodness, I don't know a lot of these words. What I want you to leave tonight is with an awareness of these things, that, oh, there's ratios that my lender looks at. I don't expect you to be able to give the definition, so don't panic. Just know that there's ratios. These are some of them, and we'll walk through them quick. So your current ratio, what that is all about is really just showing, can I pay my bills that are going to be due in the next year with the money that I have coming in the next year? So with the crops that I have in the ground, the money in my checkbook, can I pay off any debts that I'm going to have in the next year? Operating loan, interest payments, and whatnot. Term debt coverage ratio, that's the capacity thing. So can you cover the debts that you have? Are you making enough money to cover your payments? Debt to asset ratio, that's kind of a measure of kind of like an equity, but how do your debts compare to your assets? So this is saying you should have less than 50%, right? So more assets than debts. Loan to value, so that gets back to the security piece that we were talking about. That can be up to 100% of the discounted value. What's the discounted value? That would be maybe not market value, but looking at what it might be worth over time. The big thing, I think my takeaway with loan to value was, it is very seldom, like I already said, I buy a $100,000 house, I get to take out $100,000. They will look at, oh, you want to borrow $50,000 for a $100,000 house. That's a good loan to value. There's quite a bit of equity there. So that's what they're getting at, the equity. Net worth gain, that's, are you growing? Is your business growing every year? Are you increasing in your owner's equity over time? And then the last one, this one might be the one you're most familiar with. What's your credit score? Is it over 660? That's a good sign. And no one of these things qualifies you for a loan, nor does any one of these things disqualify you from a loan. You might be a rock star on 5 out of 6 and need to work through a plan for the 6th one, how you're going to make it happen. You want to see most of these, though, in these areas. And the longer you've had a lending relationship, the easier it becomes for your lender to work with you on some of these things. When you're brand new, though, a lot of times they really expect you to hit it out of the park. Yes, and all of the definitions are listed. Good call, Jake, out on the local foods website. Thank you. Oh, and I have it here, too, at the bottom, Center for Farm Financial Management, which is a group that I work with at the university, but they have quite a bit of information on anything you want to know about farm finances, including what these ratios are. Okay, I'll stop again. Questions on the what your lender is looking for, the credit considerations. Last thing. So sometimes, I don't know, I think people always thought the banker was this big scary person, and how can I learn to work with my lender a little bit better? Well, honestly, the bank really wants to see you succeed, and some of that is like, people want to see other people succeed. Bankers aren't cold-hearted, I promise. They want to see you succeed. Some of it is, obviously, it's in their best interest, too. So if you want to have a good relationship with your banker, you need to communicate. You want to be upfront and honest about what's going on. So if you're having problems, do not wait to talk to them. Tell them right away, because it's easier to fix things early on than to wait. So be upfront and honest, and they really want to be a part of your team. Once you get in with the lender, they want to keep you. Really, it's speaking from experience, it is hard to drop someone from the portfolio. So once you get in, do what you can to keep everyone happy, and then be ready. Have the documents. Show them you've done your homework. It's kind of like being a student and they're the teacher, right? Show up, have your homework all done. It takes time, especially if you're doing, it's a busy time of the year, operating loan renewals, or you're doing a mortgage. That stuff can take some time. So if you want a loan, don't expect to get it the next day. Be ready. Whenever you want it, try to get in maybe a month or 6 weeks ahead of that. What else? So be proactive, be able to talk through whatever it is that you want to do. Talk to them. I'll just say that again. I have all sorts of funny tips once you get in with your lender of things not to do. We won't get into them tonight, but just communicate. And then think about, your lender you might have say, hey, I want to do this and this and this, and your lender might come back and say, I think this would be better. Be open to that and be open to kind of negotiating what a good loan package might look like. The banker wants to see you succeed. They don't want to see you have such big payments that you're struggling to make ends meet. They want to see you be successful. So that's my bottom line. The bank wants to see your farm succeed, and I really sincerely mean that as somebody who worked in this industry. I wanted all my farmers to succeed. That's why I was doing what I was doing. I loved working with small business owners and farmers. Now I think for real, this is Jake's turn. So I'm going to hand the ball to him, and we'll transition and we'll talk about other places to find capital, maybe when you're not ready for the bank or the bank's saying no.
Yeah, so Betty and I were having a conversation about this presentation last week, and we were kind of thinking, it's not easy to get a loan from a bank, and for some folks you may not be just at that point and not quite thinking about that kind of level of borrowing, and so I decided I'd come up with just a few different options of places to get credit and capital to do some things maybe at a smaller scale than what we're talking about from a bank. So this is not completely exhaustive. I think this could be a presentation in itself, but wanted to give you some options if you're thinking, oh, this bank thing isn't going to work for me, I need something else. So here are a few things. There's a really good document out there, and it's called Building Sustainable Farms, Ranches, and Communities. It is it's pages and pages and pages of federal programs mostly through the United States Department of Agriculture that provide money, capital, grants, loans, a number of different funding mechanisms to farmers. I've highlighted a couple of those on here. The Farm Service Agency has a microloan program. It's for loans under $50,000. I don't know what the smallest one is. There might be, like something like $1,000 or something like that. But look into that a little bit further. It's a little bit streamlined compared to their other loans. They don't have, they're not as quite as stringent on these, and don't require quite as much of their borrowers. And so I think this is a program that might be a little bit more of a fit for somebody who's trying to get a footing with a small farm business or something like that. If you're interested in doing some conservation on your farm and have some needs there, the EQIP, or it's the EQIP or EQIP is commonly called, or the CSP programs can be helpful as well. And I know, like, even, I think I've met farmers who, for example, are in the CSP program, I believe, and they're rotational grazers, and they're getting funding for putting fencing in from that program. So, and some technical assistance as well. So those can be helpful programs for a variety of different things as well. Within the EQIP program, somebody was asking earlier about a high tunnel. That person may have gotten funding for a high tunnel from the EQIP program. So that's an NRCS program, and they provide funding for high tunnels. It's a pretty sweet deal. So if that's something that you're interested in, check that out. I think they have individual state programs. A lot of these NRCS and FSA programs have offices in your county, and you can go and talk to an actual program, somebody who coordinates those programs, and get some more information. There's a few other areas. The USDA also does a value-added producer grant, and Minnesota has a similar program called the Minnesota Value-Added Grant Program. And these are things where, maybe if you're looking to expand your vegetable farm and you need like some refrigeration needs, you need a cooler, some of that kind of thing, where you're able to, maybe process things more, or buy some equipment, something like that. So these are good programs in that area, and I know that the Minnesota program is open at this time right now for applications, and you can get money for that. Other places, I was looking at this, it's a PowerPoint presentation put on, or that was developed by Ben Waterman at UVM Extension. It's called Creative Financing, Complementary Financing. And he had some really good ideas. A lot of you are familiar with crowdfunding, so people that are using Kickstarter or Indiegogo, or I think there's actually a farm-specific one called Barnraiser. Lots of different programs. There's different ways of setting these up. Some of these are you're actually borrowing money, and some of them are where you're just getting the money as a grant, more or less. Some of these, there's one that's called Kiva Zip that you get people to lend, and it comes in at I think it's 0% interest. So those can be helpful. Kind of the CSA model is, kind of that original kind of creative way of funding yourself, where you're able to, people buy shares, and they pay you up front for the cost that you're going to have through that year to provide them with vegetables weekly over that growing season. So that's at a smaller scale. You could also, if you have a larger purchase, you could sell some multi-year shares. So maybe you can sell a 3-year CSA share and get a bigger pot of money, and be able to make some larger purchases or fund some different things. Share leases used to be a little bit more common in the area of like commodity crop production. They're less so now, but essentially that's where somebody would go in together with the person they're renting the land from might share some expenses and get some of the income from that business, and so that's a way to kind of spread some expenses around a little bit more and share that that income. And then I think the last thing I have, Cornell Small Farms Program is really excellent, and they have a really nice page that goes through a number of different sources for funding, and there's some good ideas there. I recommend that you head there if you have any other questions or looking for more information on some of these things. But like I said, the Small Farm Program, also take a look at that presentation that was developed by UVM Extension, that creative financing. There's a lot of good ideas there. Check that out. Is there another question stop? Otherwise, we can keep moving with Betty. I don't see anything right now in the chat, so Betty, I'll pass it on to you. You can keep on rolling here.
Okay, thanks, Jake. Yeah, there's a lot of really creative ways to find financing when you're first starting out. And Jake and I were having this conversation last week. If you want to farm and you really want to do it, there's probably a way to make it happen. It's like anything in life. It just takes some hard work, right? And you might have to be willing to maybe do things a little bit differently than the traditional path. But there's absolutely opportunities and ways to make it happen. So the next thing that I'm going to talk about is Ag Plan, which is literally a way to create a business plan. It's really cool software. I'll talk about what is a business plan and then what is the software. And I always say, spoiler alert, it's free software too, so you should use it. But what is a business plan? So it's just a statement of what are your business goals, why you think they can happen, and then how are you going to make it happen. And I'm curious if you're comfortable, if you want to use your check mark or X, how many of you have worked on a business plan? See a couple of you responding. Good, 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 good. Yeah, it's a good thing to have. You might think, wait a minute, she's talking about a business plan. Do I need a business plan? What I would say is any business will benefit. Now I get it, like I have a little garden behind my house. We grew 13 pumpkins last year. I do not have a business plan. I don't need a business plan. They sat on my front porch. But if I was serious about having a pumpkin patch and I had 5 acres and I was growing pumpkins and I wanted to see it grow into some sort of agritourism, you better believe that I would have a business plan for how I was going to get there. So if you're a new business and you really are, selling enough where, yep, I see this turning into something that's going to be an important part of my income, or you're looking to make changes, expand, yeah, absolutely have a business plan. So what's the purpose? We talked about how a little bit ago I said it's kind of like you're a student, you got to do your homework. That's what this does. It demonstrates you've taken the time to really think through what it is that you want to do. It shows you can do some strategic thinking and you're not just kind of executing and going about things day to day. You can think really big, broad picture. It's also going to help you. It's not just about doing homework and making other people happy. It gives you a blueprint for how am I going to get to where I want to go, and then operationally, how am I going to run this thing every day? So it's really a blueprint for your business. Here are some things, the group that I work with, that we've learned. It can take a lot of time to write one of these. That's why people don't do it. What fun is it to write about numbers and business and take time when you could be, doing farming and doing what we always say, doing actual work, right? It can be time consuming. Make the time to do it. It's one of those things that you might not see the immediate benefit, like when you go out and pick the pumpkins or something, but long term you'll see the benefits. It really is done best by the business owner. You can absolutely hire a consultant to do it. You're welcome to do that. It can get very expensive. It will probably be at least a few $1,000s, if not several. You know your business best. It's not about having these great, crazy ideas. It's about what's your idea, and then just being able to say that simply. So your business plan, once you get it done, you should be revisiting it annually to see, hey, maybe I met some of my milestones. What's next? Or how am I tracking against my milestones? What are the sections of a business plan? So you'll have an executive summary. That's just kind of the high level. Here's what we're about. Here's what we want to do. A description of your business. That's kind of the easiest thing to write about. And then some plans for these 4 key areas: operations, marketing, personnel or employees, and then financially, how are you going to do it? So you might be thinking, as you look at all of these, I don't even know what those things mean or what the differences are. That's where Ag Plan comes in. This is a web-based plan. It's designed for multiple rural business types. So whether you are growing corn and soybeans or you're doing some value-added stuff, maybe you just have a rural small business, you do taxes in a small town, or we actually have a commercial fishing option too. I think it's called Fish Biz. We have something for anyone in the rural areas. So check it out. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. Each type of business, so it's really cool. If we had more time, I would literally go through it line by line, but you get an outline of what all the topics are. So what are all, I'm going to flip back here, what are all the possible things you could write about an operations plan? You can go in and it tells you, like, this is what you should be writing about in this section. Oh, and look, here's a template. Here's what someone else wrote in this section. So you get a very strong sense of what it is you're supposed to be writing about, and that can be really helpful. You could literally copy and paste and just work on changing the names and the crops and inserting your goals. So if you're like, I'm not a writer, that's fine. This tool it's really good, and it's free. Did I mention that? Okay, it also has tips, questions, and then you, like I said, you get to see the sample. So here's what someone else said about it. Here's what other business plans look like. So you can get some ideas. Not every business is going to use every single topic. They'll have all these sections that we were talking about. They'll have these sections, but there's multiple topics. There's probably 10 or 15 topics in operations. You won't need all of them. Just pick the ones that make sense for your business. Here's the website. Here's the big thing. Write this down. Go check it out. It's super user-friendly. I think it is. If you don't, email me and I'll try to give you a few pointers. You'll have to make up an account. Don't worry, we don't sell those. It's just kind of to keep track of how many people are using this extension. Remember, we're taxpayer funded, so we got to have results at the end of the year. But I promise your email's not getting sold. So check it out. This is I love this tool. I would use it even if I didn't work for the university. So benchmarking, here's the last thing financially. Sometimes you just wonder, am I doing anything right? What are the neighbors doing? Do I have this figured out? There's some ways to benchmark. I'll be honest, with smaller farms, if you're growing vegetables or fruit or working in a farmer's market, some of that data is not as readily available. We have some awesome colleagues in Extension who did some very intensive survey work, and so I'm going to share some of the results of that right now, just to give you an idea, but hopefully it makes you all feel a little better. So this is, like I said, our colleague Ryan Pesh conducted this along with Bridget Cock, who is in our Community Vitality Group, but financial benchmarking and economic impact of local food operations, which is what a lot of you are. So what I want you to notice here is, wow, what a range, right? We got a market garden that's less than 3 acres, the gross revenue per acre, $2,200 to close to $46,000. I don't have access to all the granular level data to say, oh, it was this kind of farm that had the $46,000 per acre revenue. But what I want you to take away from this is it's going to look really different depending on what you're growing, what you're doing, and how intensively you're doing it. So focus, when I think sometimes when we're in these specialty crops, it's harder to compare. You know if you're being successful or not. If the cash is flowing at the end of the day, you know. I'll point out just a couple other things. I thought this was cool when we looked at the net return per acre, so the actual profit. The market gardens were typically profitable, and they were, you know, on average around $4,000 an acre. So yeah, it's less than 3 acres, but they're turning a profit. So maybe it's not a full-time endeavor for you, but it certainly is something that you can do and make a little extra income, and maybe even expand to be more than just a little extra income, to be a really big endeavor for you. And then we have market farms, so they're a little bit bigger. We did have a loss, it looks like, but in general, they're doing pretty well too. I can't quite explain what the connection is here between why these smaller farms seem to have the greatest return. Could be the crop that they're growing. Could be, you know, let's say I'm retired and I just have a few acres. I'm really spending a lot of time out there on what little land I do have. So those might be some of the stories that the data are telling us. And then just looking at all farms, on average, though, $1,300 per acre. So it is possible to be profitable and successful. And it looks like Jake just posted the link to this report, too. So it's going to vary. Regardless of how you sell the product, so whether you're direct marketing it or direct marketing is less than, so whether direct marketing is greater than 80% of your sales or direct marketing is less than 80% of your sales, your costs are going to look similar. So your marketing costs, either way, are going to be around this 15% of your total sales and around, we'll call it 30% of your total expenses. So what does this mean? It means if you're in a farmer's market or you got a great wholesale agreement going on, either way, you're spending some money on marketing, right? And it's going to be about 15% of your sales or close to 30% of your expenses. You can see here this direct marketing, less than 80% of sales. So that's like I have a wholesale agreement. The sales are a little bit larger farms we see in the data here, more produce sales. With that comes, you know, more higher expenses and then greater marketing costs. But you can see that as you look across the line, the transportation costs are, you know, proportionally pretty similar. Advertising and then the dues, it's all about the same. So one way, my mother used to always say this, one way or another they get you, right? No matter what you're doing to market your crops, there's going to be a cost. That's your takeaway here. And then the last one, I know this one's a little harder to read. It'll be online, right? And you might be able to get a better view of it there. But again, your takeaway is that every operation, just like every operation has a different net return per acre, the expenses are going to look really different too. And even the line by line expenses are going to look different. So we got a list of expenses here, right? Then we look at the number of farms with the expense. And this was a really intense survey, if you can believe this. They had 11 farms, which isn't a huge sample size. If you read the report, they're very upfront about that. We know it's small, but this serves to benchmark and give you some ideas. So, you know, is this the gospel truth? Maybe not, but is this a good reference point? And does this give us some data and some ideas? Absolutely. But what you can see, I thought this was just fascinating that, you know, depending on the type of operation you had, you may or may not have some of these expenses. Looks like everybody's growing crops, so everybody's going to have some seed expenses, right, and some supplies, but not necessarily everyone's using chemicals or getting help. Some people, this is interesting, one farm was not, you know, using transportation. I'm not sure how they were moving things. Maybe they were just selling everything right off the farm, but what I want you to take away is that your operation, especially when you are a smaller farm, it's not going to be the same as a corn and soybean farm where things really look pretty similar and it's very much commoditized. You're in a really unique industry. You get to set, charter your own course, right? So keep that in mind.
So I have a question, Betty,
yes.
about that. So
a tough question, right?
Okay.
I'm almost done, Jake.
No, I'm just thinking, you know, where, you know, some of these folks might be looking at businesses that are different than the traditional corn and soybean operation, right, that some of our rural bankers are a little bit more used to seeing and understanding. So how do you know, how do these folks, how can they communicate what their business looks like and that they understand, you know, how they're going to be making money and what these expenses are and how it all works out? Do you have any recommendations for them to kind of communicate the kind of the story of that?
That's a really good question, and it's a really fair question. I'm in the rural areas. Everyone else grows corn and soybeans, and I'm trying to start my little, you know, 20-acre strawberry patch or something. And the banker doesn't seem to get it because it's so different. And I'll be frank. When I worked at the bank, that could be problematic at times. It didn't mean you couldn't get the lending, but you really had to tell your story to the banker and have your ducks in a row. So get that business plan done and be able to back up what's in there and then show the financials. So go through and do an income statement, do a cash flow, show here's where I'm going to be spending money, here's where I'm going to be making money, and here's how it's all netting out. That would be my best advice. Do your homework, talk to others in your industry too, find out who they work with. I would imagine some banks are more comfortable with some of that too. FSA, we talked a little bit about Farm Service Agency too. Sometimes if you're really struggling to find lending, what FSA will do is if a bank thinks it's probably a pretty good deal, FSA will work with the bank. It's called guaranteeing the loan, so basically if you default, FSA would pay the bank. But it's a way for you to get in with the lender, essentially. So the lender ponies up the dollars to you so that you can do what you want to do. You make your payments, and then when you're done, you build a relationship. And if something goes wrong, the bank still gets their money because FSA will cover off. So do your homework, talk to others, do the business plan. That is one thing that's different, I think, about this industry than maybe traditional agriculture. You really have to be able to tell your story and show that it's going to be profitable. Because the margins, I mean, we can go back to keep going the wrong way. We can go here, right? We're not making $100,000 if I got less than 3 acres and my return's only $4,000 a year. So be ready to talk about off-farm income, and that you understand that perhaps your off-farm income is going to help finance, and maybe why you're comfortable with that. This is really my, as an example, this is really my dream. I think it's really important to be able to provide local foods. I want to see this grow. I know it's going to take capital. I'm willing to put my own skin in the game to do this. Are you going to come along on the journey with me? That meant a lot, actually, when folks came in with their own, some of their own capital. We knew they were serious. We knew they were willing to not only ask us to put ourselves out there, they were putting themselves out there too. And for you to put yourself out there is a bank understands it's a much bigger risk than just the bank making the loan. So that speaks volumes too.
Yeah, those are good ideas. Thanks, Betty.
Okay, other questions? I'm back to my objective slide. So you guys can check yes or no if you feel like you learned these things, and then if you have other questions, we got 7 minutes left. Yeah, check yes or no if you think we kind of accomplished this. And if you don't think we accomplished this, send me a note or a chat and let me know what it is you'd like to hear about still, and I will gladly talk about it.
There's a question that came into me privately. It says, would creating a projected balance sheet as a result of this loan help tell the story? Would this have any impact on lenders?
Yeah, so your lender will do some of that. I think it can help. You don't just want a balance sheet, though. You want to show the cash flow as well. So just a really simple example, let's say you have $100,000 in assets today on your balance sheet, and you have $50,000 in debt, really simple numbers, and then you take out the loan for $100,000 to buy a $200,000 piece of land. An updated balance sheet, sure, that would show how your debt to asset ratio changed. And that's helpful, but what would really be helpful is just showing, like, now I have this money, here's what I'm going to do with this land. Let me show you all the cash and the income that it's going to generate. Yes, there'll be some expenses, but let me show you where I'm actually going to be making the money to make the payments. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense anyway.
Yeah, that's good.
So yes, updated financials absolutely help. I would say really understanding that budgeting and cash flow and income statement piece, that's where the payment information is going to come from. That's going to be extremely critical.
Yeah, just thanks everybody for joining. We really appreciate your participation in this. Okay, so I left a little gap there. If any of you want to stick around, we'll let this might be a little bit wonky. I think it'll work pretty well, but we'll just see how it goes. Betty can show us a quick trial or just a view of Ag Plan and some of those features. So if you want to stick around and see it, please do. If that's it for tonight, have a good night, and hopefully see you next week.
So what I was saying is it's really easy to use. Go out to Ag Plan, right? We'll just start over. I'll be fast. You log in. You need to register. I'm registered. And then it's as easy as clicking start a new plan. And you can see I've taught this a few times, so I'm doing all sorts of things here. I was selling widgets. I have a lot of crazy projects, evidently. Okay, so you can pick your plan type. There's even stuff for your, personal space. So we'll say ag value added. We're going to call this a pumpkin patch. And it is that easy. Boom, I got a plan, right? Easy. So one of the neat things is, let's say you're working with your husband or wife on this, or Jake is a great educator, and he's like, I'll take a look at it for you. You can just pop their email address in there, nothing to it. So Jake, what are your, I should know your email. I don't. Should know it at this point. So I can pop Jake's name in here. What is it, OBRG028 or something?
Yeah, whatever it is.
Whatever.
0128, but it doesn't matter.
012. Okay, you'll have access. Yeah, and you can just say, I don't want that darn Jake messing it up. I just want to know what he thinks. So comment only or comment and edit, and then he could make changes. So depending on what you want to do, yep, that's that easy. And then if Jake says things I don't like, I can revoke the access too. And then I click return to my plan. Let's say now I want to get some work done actually. So I click on view plan. This is where I start. And this might look a little overwhelming. Holy smokes. So here's the buckets we talked about: executive summary, business description, operations, marketing, your management or personnel, and then your financial plan. And you see all these subheadings. Wow, there's a lot of them. You probably aren't going to use all of them. I really seriously, very few people do. You'll need to figure out what fits for you, right? We recommend starting with your business description. It's the easiest thing to write. And you can see down here, there's some tips. Just make a brief description. So here's what it should do. If you don't know what if you're not familiar with the business, explain, what it is you produce. So, I produce pumpkins on 10 acres and sell to Super Value Foods. My long-term goal, is to start a you-pick pumpkin patch. And you could add a little bit more. For as much as I talk, I actually don't write a lot, but it's that easy. And then you just click over here. There's this, let me see here. I believe there's a save somewhere. Or it might just save it saves automatically. Okay, if you got a mission statement, and then just kind of go down the line. What I really like, though, are these tips. Resources, if you're not sure what to do, if there's resources available, they'll be there, and then there'll also be samples. So products, what products are you growing? Well, here's one this is great because it's value added. The majority of our 2003 income came from the sales of tomatoes, radishes, greens, and eggplant. In 2004, here's what we're going to do. That's what we do. You could literally take this, copy and paste it, and I could just fill in all the words with pumpkins instead, right? So if you're not a good writer, don't let that scare you. And then you can even see there's multiple samples here too. So here's Lakeshore Orchard. They do all sorts of different things. And then I could send an email to Jake and say, hey, I made some updates. Check it out. Can you let me know what you think? So I always think I make this look too easy, but honestly, it really is this easy, and not making it look too easy. It really is this easy to use it. We got some buttons over here where you can click through different parts. If you want to just go through section by section, want to add comments, attach something, maybe you got some pictures that you think would be helpful, go for it. That's Ag Plan in a nutshell. I find it to be a really easy program to use. That's me. What do you think the hardest part about this is? You can think in your head. The hardest part, I believe, is finding the time to do it. So this is like exercise or organizing the house. You have to make time to do it, and you have to carve that time out and not let everything else creep into it. So whether it's you're going to work on it an hour once a week, hold that time and make sure it gets done. That's my advice. A business plan isn't that hard to write. Finding the time to write it, because it will take some time. So if you are serious, take the time, set the time aside. Don't say, I'll do it when I'm not so busy. It will never happen because we're always busy. And there's always more fun things to do on the farm or with our families. Make the time to do it, whether it's weekly, daily, once a month. Make the time to do it. Set it aside. I would put it in my calendar if it were me, so that I knew that that's what I needed to be working on. Questions on Ag Plan? I'll pause. Okay. If there aren't any questions, I'm available via email. If you do have more questions on the finances, the benchmarking, or just how does this Ag Plan work, I'm happy to try to answer some of those, so feel free to reach out too. Jake, I don't know if you have anything else or if there's any other features that you want me to point out or share about. Are you muted, Jake?
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah, I think that should be it. Really nice job. Thanks for sharing that on Ag Plan. Again, folks, we'll be back next week. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, they can join.